Cold wind was screaming across the empty Wild West road that Christmas night. The snow kept falling slowly, covering old footprints and hiding forgotten stories. I remember that moment clearly, and believe me, you won't forget it either. Because what happened next sounded like something straight from a movie scene. A quiet truck stopped near a broken wooden house standing alone in darkness. Inside that truck sat a man who had survived wars most people fear hearing about. He was an ex-Navy SEAL, a man trained for battle, danger, and impossible missions. But that night he wasn't chasing enemies or fighting in distant lands. Instead, fate guided him toward something far more unexpected and emotional. And what he found inside that lonely house would change several lives forever. Now picture this scene with me, because it matters to understand the moment. The house looked like it had been forgotten by the entire world. Old wooden boards creaked loudly every time the winter wind touched them. The windows were dark, except for a tiny flicker of candlelight inside. The man stepped out of his truck slowly, boots crunching against fresh snow. Years of military instincts made him scan the surroundings carefully and silently. But nothing about this place felt like danger waiting in the shadows. Instead, something about the silence felt heavy, almost painfully lonely. He walked closer, noticing children's drawings taped unevenly on the front door. And that's when he heard something that instantly stopped him in his tracks. Soft crying drifted through the cold night air from inside the house. Not loud, not dramatic, just the quiet sound of someone completely exhausted. The ex-SEAL paused beside the door, listening carefully before knocking slowly. For a few seconds nothing happened, just the wind pushing against the walls. Then a weak voice asked from inside, barely louder than a whisper. "Who's there?" the woman asked, her voice shaking with fear and uncertainty. The man hesitated briefly, realizing how strange this situation might appear. A stranger knocking on Christmas night could easily feel like trouble. So he spoke gently, choosing his words with surprising care and calm. "I think you might need help tonight," he said quietly. The door opened slowly, revealing a tired woman holding a candle carefully. Her eyes looked red from crying, and her face carried deep exhaustion. Behind her stood two small children wrapped in blankets for warmth. The house clearly had little heat, and the cold had crept inside already. The man noticed empty shelves in the kitchen visible from the doorway. Even the Christmas tree beside the wall had no lights or decorations. Just a few paper stars hung from its branches like silent wishes. For a moment nobody spoke, and the silence felt incredibly heavy. Finally the woman sighed, almost like she had lost the strength to pretend anymore. "Christmas didn't go the way I hoped for my kids," she admitted softly. The ex-SEAL nodded slowly, understanding more than she expected him to. He had seen villages destroyed, families broken, and lives turned upside down. But somehow this quiet scene felt just as powerful as any battlefield memory. A mother trying to stay strong while her children watched everything silently. He looked at the kids and noticed their hopeful but cautious expressions. Kids always sense when adults are struggling even if nobody explains anything. The man reached into his truck and brought back a small bag quietly. Inside were supplies he carried during long road trips across lonely highways. Food, warm blankets, and simple things most people rarely think twice about. The children's eyes widened the moment he stepped back through the door. But here's where the story takes the turn nobody expected that night. After setting the supplies down, the man looked at the widow seriously. He took a slow breath, as if preparing for something important to say. Then he spoke the words that would echo through their lives forever. "Come with me," the ex-Navy SEAL said calmly, pointing toward his truck outside. The woman stared at him, unsure whether to feel hopeful or frightened. Trusting a stranger is never easy, especially when life has already hurt you deeply. But something about his voice carried a promise stronger than doubt. It sounded like someone who had made difficult decisions his entire life. And somehow she believed this moment might be different from all the others. The kids looked at their mother, silently asking if everything would be okay. She knelt beside them, brushing snow from their small jackets carefully. Sometimes the bravest choice is stepping forward even when fear follows closely behind. So she nodded slowly and gathered the children near the door. The man helped carry their small bags without asking any questions. His truck heater roared to life, filling the cold night with comforting warmth. The kids relaxed almost instantly, finally escaping the freezing house behind them. The road ahead stretched long beneath the glowing winter stars. None of them truly knew where they were heading yet. But for the first time that night, hope quietly rode along with them. What the widow didn't know was that the ex-SEAL owned land nearby. Years after leaving the military, he had built a quiet ranch. A place where veterans helped each other rebuild their lives slowly. Cabins stood across the land, warm lights glowing in the snowy distance. When the truck finally rolled through the wooden gate, the kids gasped. It looked like something straight from a Christmas postcard scene. Warm fireplaces, decorated trees, and people laughing around glowing lanterns. The widow covered her mouth in disbelief watching the peaceful scene unfold. She hadn't seen joy like that since before her husband passed away. And suddenly the heavy weight inside her chest began to lift. The man parked the truck and opened the door with a gentle smile. Several veterans stepped outside, curious about the unexpected late-night visitors. But instead of suspicion, their faces quickly softened with understanding. Many of them had once been helped exactly the same way. A warm cabin door opened, spilling golden light into the snow. Inside waited hot soup, blankets, and a crackling fireplace welcoming them warmly. The children ran inside laughing, their fear melting faster than snowflakes. The widow stood quietly, overwhelmed by kindness she never expected again. Sometimes strangers appear exactly when life feels completely empty. And sometimes they arrive wearing worn boots and quiet courage. Later that night the ex-SEAL sat quietly beside the fireplace. The kids were asleep, finally warm and safe under heavy blankets. The widow approached him slowly, holding a mug of hot tea. She looked at him with gratitude words could barely explain properly. "You didn't even know us," she said softly, still trying to understand everything. The man shrugged gently, staring into the fire's orange glow thoughtfully. "I've seen what happens when people face darkness alone," he answered calmly. "Sometimes the strongest mission is simply showing up for someone." The widow nodded, realizing this night had rewritten her family's future. And the ranch had just gained 3 new lives to protect. Days turned into weeks, and the ranch slowly became their new home. The children helped feed horses and laughed with veterans every morning. The widow began cooking meals in the shared kitchen with others. Laughter returned to her voice in ways she thought were gone forever. Even the old Christmas tree from the house was brought to the ranch. Decorated properly this time, surrounded by warm lights and hopeful memories. The ex-SEAL watched quietly, never asking for recognition or praise. For him, helping people had simply become another kind of mission. A mission that required compassion instead of weapons or battlefield strategies. And somehow it felt even more meaningful than anything before. So if you ever feel like the world has forgotten someone tonight, remember this story about a quiet knock on a lonely Christmas door. One small moment of kindness can completely rewrite someone's future path. You never know who might be waiting for a miracle to appear. Sometimes heroes don't arrive with sirens, fame, or dramatic announcements. Sometimes they arrive with warm blankets and a simple invitation. "Come with me," spoken by someone who refuses to ignore suffering. And that's the kind of courage the Wild West stories rarely mention. But maybe those are the greatest heroes of all. The ones who quietly choose kindness when nobody is watching. If this story touched your heart even a little today, don't keep it to yourself. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more powerful Wild West stories. Leave a like so more people can discover stories that restore faith in humanity. And most importantly, tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. Because every story becomes stronger when a community shares it together. Your voice matters more than you might realize here. So join the conversation and let's keep these unforgettable stories alive. And who knows, maybe the next story will inspire someone watching tonight. Until then, stay safe, stay kind, and keep believing in unexpected heroes.